a troubled teenager in local authority care, numerous failures by social services and the police, arrests and a full murder inquiry launched, but not a single trace of her has ever been found. So what happened to Sarah Benford?
Welcome to Vanished Voices UK, your new favourite spot for curious missing persons cases, true crime stories, and in-depth investigations.
The disappearance of Sarah Benford, a vulnerable child let down by the police and social services. On the 6th of April 2000, Sarah Benford was last seen in Kettering, Northamptonshire, after leaving a Welford House children's home 2 days earlier. Despite a formal murder inquiry opened in 2003 and multiple arrests and searches across Kettering, London and Wales, no trace of Sarah has ever been found. Now, over 25 years on, Sarah Benford's case remains one of the country's most high-profile cold cases, her disappearance still haunting investigators, her family, and the community. Sarah Benford was 14 when she disappeared. Yet long before April 2000, her life had been marked by instability and vulnerability. She was born in 1986 and spent her early childhood in a modest terraced house on Havelock Street, Kettering, living with her mother Vicky, stepfather Gavin, brother Josh and sister Anya. From the age of 2, Sarah was known to social services, the first of many interventions as her behaviour was deemed to grow increasingly challenging. Sarah began skipping classes as early as reception, and by age 8 was already absconding from home. She was enrolled at the Montague School when she was 11. She was described by teachers as confident and bubbly, but underlying issues soon surfaced. By 14, Sarah had experimented with heroin, cocaine, speed and aerosol solvents, and had begun to self-harm, behaviours that led to 3 separate care placements in just over a year. Her mother later explained that she agreed to Sarah entering care to shield her from local criminals who were exploiting her drug dependence. In September 1999, following the death of her uncle Andy, Sarah was placed in Raven House in Corby. In late 1999, she was moved to St John's Secure Unit in Tiffield. In early 2000, she was transferred to Welford House, Northampton, her final placement before she ran away. In terms of her vulnerability, investigators later noted that sexual exploitation and grooming by older men were likely factors in her decline, but at the time, authorities treated her as a runaway rather than a child at risk. Academic studies of child sexual exploitation describe a possible trajectory that seems to fit with Sarah's case. Dealers supply drugs to gain control. Once dependency is established, the child is coerced into prostitution or other criminal acts, and if they step out of line, may be silenced permanently. A 2004 Serious Case Review criticised both social services and police for operating with insufficient resources and failing to assess Sarah's acute needs before her disappearance. As mentioned previously, Sarah Benford had been living at Welford House Children's Home in Northampton in early April 2000. On the 4th of April, she left the home without permission, what authorities refer to as an absconsion. According to Northamptonshire Police, Sarah left the home at around 9:45 AM on Tuesday the 4th of April. She made her way from Northampton to Kettering, approximately 20 miles away. At the time, she had been regularly going missing and was considered highly vulnerable due to her drug use, past exploitation and mental health difficulties. Her whereabouts between the 4th and 6th of April were not precisely documented, although she was believed to be staying with friends or known adults in the Kettering area. Her absence was not considered unusual at first, and she was not immediately reported missing. The last time Sarah was seen in person by her mother Vicky was on the 6th of April, when Sarah walked into the amusement arcade in Kettering town centre where her mum worked. They argued, and Sarah told her mother that she'd see her tomorrow before walking off. That moment remains their final face-to-face contact. Sarah's last confirmed sighting was in Kettering town centre. An unidentified local witness reported seeing her walking alone in the town centre that afternoon. Later that day, Sarah phoned her mum from a house in Hampton Crescent, Kettering. She was high on drugs and told her mother that she did not want to return to Welford House. Vicky, hearing the fear and distress in her daughter's voice, immediately rang Northamptonshire Police and begged officers to collect Sarah and bring her back to the care home. The police refused, maintaining that they had no legal basis to detain her, despite Sarah clearly indicating she was frightened and under the influence. Investigators later confirmed that they believe Sarah was murdered shortly after she was last seen in Kettering, though her body has never been found. Despite Sarah Benford's disappearance initially being treated as a runaway case, from the moment she was reported missing, investigators launched inquiries that continue to this day. Very soon after Sarah was reported missing on the 7th of April, Northamptonshire Police coordinated local searches in Kettering, canvassed known associates, and issued a missing person appeal via radio and local press. In 2001, Sarah's image appeared on milk cartons nationwide in an effort to keep her case in the public eye. On each significant anniversary, notably in April 2020, detectives renewed public appeals under the banner Time to Tell, urging anyone with information, even if it seemed trivial, to come forward. In July 2003, 3 years after her disappearance, the case was upgraded to a murder inquiry, despite no body being recovered. This was based on accumulating intelligence that Sarah had likely met with foul play. Between July and November 2003, multiple arrests were made. On the 5th of July and 22nd of September, 2 local men were arrested, questioned and released without charge. On the 1st of October, a property in Kettering was searched under warrant, and further persons of interest were interviewed. On the 23rd of October, additional addresses on the same road were raided, and suspects were arrested and then released. On the 26th of November, a flat in Hampton Crescent was examined for forensic evidence. And on the 27th of November, a 41-year-old man was arrested and bailed, later released without charge. There have also been subsequent cold case reviews and operations. In March 2016, officers excavated sections of Walkden Woods after a tip suggesting Sarah's remains might have been concealed there. A disused firearm was recovered, but proved unrelated. In November 2021, following significant intelligence, a 70 by 70 metre site in Kettering's Valley Walk area was systematically dug using forensic archaeologists and ground-penetrating radar, but no human remains were uncovered. In February 2022, many new lines of inquiry emerged. After the 2021 dig yielded no results, detectives announced that they were pursuing dozens of fresh leads, from re-interviewing witnesses to re-examining seized phone records, to piece together Sarah's final movements. Despite more than 2 decades of searches, arrests and forensic operations, the police have yet to produce the answer for the Benford family and the community who are desperately seeking answers. No single explanation fully accounts for Sarah's disappearance. Next, we examine the main theories grounded in the known facts and assess their strengths and weaknesses. Some have speculated that Sarah may have chosen to disappear of her own accord. After all, by April 2000 she had absconded from care more than 40 times, and running away was familiar territory for her. Yet, in every prior instance she resurfaced, returning to Welford House or contacting family. This time, however, with no known financial or communications activity, no hint of a new identity, and that total silence immediately following her distressed phone call to her mum makes the notion of voluntary disappearance difficult to sustain. A more convincing explanation centres on the documented pattern of drug-related grooming and sexual exploitation. By age 14, Sarah was injecting heroin and experimenting with cocaine and solvents, vulnerabilities that predators could exploit. According to the Northamptonshire Telegraph, staff at the Service 6 Youth Centre later reported that she had been brought there by a known prostitute and her pimp for a pregnancy test. Exploiters often use drugs to create dependence, then exert control through debt and coercion. While no charges ever followed those reports, they aligned with the police's decision to open a formal murder inquiry in July 2003, based on intelligence suggesting that she had met with foul play at the hands of those who first supplied her addiction. Investigators have also considered the possibility that Sarah fell victim to an acquaintance or opportunistic stranger. Multiple arrests between 2003 and 2021, ranging from local men in their 20s to older persons, were driven by accumulating tips and forensic searches in areas linked to her associates. In each case, suspects were released without charge, and extensive excavations of woodland and urban sites yielded no human remains. The persistence of these intelligence-led operations underlines detectives' confidence that Sarah was murdered, yet with no body or decisive forensic evidence, pinpointing a perpetrator remains frustratingly out of reach. Finally, critics point to systemic failures that left Sarah exposed at her most vulnerable moment. On the 6th of April, after Sarah's mother begged police to collect her daughter, frightened, high, and unwilling to return, the officers declined, viewing her as a runaway rather than a child at immediate risk. A 2004 serious case review later concluded that social services and police had operated with insufficient resources and poor inter-agency communication, failing to assess Sarah's acute needs or treat her as a victim of child sexual exploitation. While we can never know if prompt intervention that afternoon would have changed the outcome, these procedural errors represent a critical missed opportunity to keep Sarah safe. Together, these strands, voluntary disappearance, exploitation by drug traffickers, murder by an acquaintance, and institutional neglect, frame the enduring mystery of what happened to Sarah Benford. Each theory speaks to different facets of the known facts, yet none alone can fully account for her disappearance. With more than 2 decades of investigation having yielded no concrete leads, many fundamental questions about Sarah's fate remain unanswered. Who supplied the significant intelligence for the 2021 dig? In November 2021, police excavated a 70 by 70 metre site in Kettering's Valley Walk after receiving significant intelligence. The identity, credibility and motives of that informant remain confidential, as does the specific content of their tip. Understanding why this tip surfaced after 21 years could expose previously undisclosed connections between Sarah and her potential assailants. Why has no body ever been found? Despite the excavations in 2016 and 2021, targeted searches in London and Wales, Sarah's remains have never been recovered. It remains unknown whether Sarah was disposed of in a yet untouched location, destroyed by environmental factors, or concealed in private property that has never been searched. Without a body, forensic confirmation of cause, time and manner of death is impossible, severely limiting the prosecution of any suspect. Are there witnesses who have never come forward? The police have taken hundreds of statements, but detectives continue to appeal for anyone with information, no matter how small, to come forward. Could individuals who saw Sarah on the 6th of April and after have remained silent out of fear, loyalty, or simply not realising the significance of what they observed? A single new witness account could corroborate existing evidence, place Sarah with a suspect, or explain her final movements. Could early agency failures have altered the outcome? Officers declined to collect Sarah after the call with her mother, and the Serious Case Review criticised these decisions as insufficient in risk assessment. Could immediate intervention have prevented Sarah's isolation and subsequent victimisation? A clearer understanding of procedural failings could bring about policy reforms, but may never reveal what actually happened to Sarah. These unanswered questions, among many others, keep Sarah's case alive and underscore why police continue to seek fresh information whenever and wherever it may emerge. Sarah Benford's case reveals stark failures by both police and social services to safeguard a highly vulnerable child. As discussed before, in August 2000, it is alleged that Service 6 staff in Wellingborough reported Sarah being brought in by a known prostitute and her pimp for a pregnancy test. This is an acute red flag for child sexual exploitation, yet neither social services nor police initiated a safeguarding review or follow-up investigation. Despite Sarah's call for help to her mother, police declined to act, deeming her a voluntary runaway rather than a child at imminent risk, despite clear evidence of CSE and self-harm. A Serious Case Review criticised both agencies for insufficient resources, poor inter-agency communication, and failing to treat Sarah as a child at risk rather than a persistent runaway. Similar themes occurred in the case of Charlene Downs, whose story we covered recently. Both young women were clearly in significant danger, yet the authorities and social services let them both down. How much more evidence did they need to take action in both of these cases? Charlene was also initially treated as a routine missing person rather than a high-risk case. This delayed forensic searches and specialist exploitation inquiries. Only when media pressure mounted did authorities deploy dedicated child protection officers. Sarah Benford's disappearance remains unsolved. If you know or even suspect anything that could advance this investigation, your help could be vital. If you know anything, call Northamptonshire Police on 101 and quote incident number 359 of the 10th of the 11th 2021. If you'd rather remain anonymous, call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 and quote Sarah Benford. You can also submit information through the Northamptonshire Police website's Report a Serious Crime form, selecting missing person and entering the incident details above. No detail is too small. A fleeting sighting, a discarded item, an overheard conversation, anything could unlock the truth. Speak up today and help bring answers, accountability, and most importantly, closure to Sarah's family. As mentioned previously, Sarah Benford was a vulnerable 14-year-old in the care of local authorities when she vanished on the 6th of April, leaving behind a grieving family and a raft of unanswered questions. Detectives have mounted multiple searches, from local woodland to urban excavations, arrested suspects and re-examined every piece of intelligence, yet no trace of her has ever been found. Sarah's disappearance highlights a tragic combination of systemic failings, insufficient early intervention, exploitation of vulnerable teenagers, and a missed opportunity to safeguard her when she begged for help. Her case reminds us that cold cases never truly close while questions remain unanswered, and that public memory can keep investigations alive. If you have any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, please contact Northamptonshire Police. Together, we can bring Sarah home. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, every missing person deserves to be found. Like, comment, and subscribe to see more new and cold missing persons cases from the UK.